Hi, this is Anna Imagination with the Healing Garden. Welcome to Philosophical Coffee. And if you are new to my channel, I am an ontological physicist, and I do a lot with the self, reality, and those are my two big ones, the self and reality. So I did a lot of reflection last night. Yesterday was a wonderful day, and I woke up this morning with, I'm just going to read these quotes to you. This was my takeaway. I woke up at 4 a.m. this morning and it just came to me. The poorly regulated self will go into emergency mode and close down into closed-minded thinking in a last act to preserve the self. Hence, an inability to problem solve, see alternatives, find solutions, and become prejudiced. It is a self-preservation type forced induced comfort zone. And then later I said, this is upon waking this morning, your present is the manifested future that you invented in conception when you chose or didn't choose your current reality. That one is really, really big. Now, I have been one of those persons, and I suspect a lot of people are, because there's an entire Seinfeld episode about this. So I'm the kind of person who has components of myself. Over there, I keep that part of me. Over here, I keep this part of me. Over there, I keep this part of me. And this is actually what we refer to as not integrated. And I'm going to talk about that gorgeous episode of Seinfeld. It was the worlds colliding episode. I love going back to this episode. It's one of my favorite episodes in Seinfeld. And it is George has his group of friends, and then George goes off and he has a girlfriend. And Elaine finds, well, they're talking and she meets George's girlfriend. I was shopping the other day and I ran into so-and-so. And she invited George's girlfriend to a friend event. And George blows up. He's like, oh, no, 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 no. And she's like, I don't understand what's going on. And Jerry gets it. Well, no, Jerry doesn't get it because there's two parts. First, there's Jerry's explaining this to George. And then there's George explaining it to Elaine. And he goes, you can't do that. Your worlds are colliding. And he's like, I don't, what is this worlds colliding? And he goes, there's George. There's great George. There's happy George. There's George over there with, I know I'm the George that hangs out with you and we go do things. And Jerry goes, yeah, I like that George. And he goes, yeah, I do too. I love that George. And then there's the George who goes over there and does that. And I'm with my girlfriend and I'm doing other things. And he goes, but George with her and George with you are two different Georges. And when you bring them together, a George divided against himself cannot stand, George says. It's the worlds colliding episode. I'm going to break it down to you. George is a fifth perspective. But around that woman, he acts like a second perspective. And when he is with her, he is wearing a mask of the second ethical perspective because that is what she is. She is a second ethical perspective. But when he is around his friends, he acts like a fifth ethical perspective. She does not know that he is fifth ethical, and they do not know that he is second ethical. Now, when the two of them come together, he's going to have to choose between the second ethic or the fifth ethic. And he can't. He can't. It's not possible. This is why a lot of us have friends over there, friends over there, and friends over there. It is a really fucking common problem. And it's one that really needs definition, naming, voice. Let's talk about this thing that we're all doing that no one ever mentions. It's very much an unspoken, that thing we do that no one ever talks about. And the closest we got to talking about it was George's worlds colliding. So I'm going to pull on that today and throw it out there and go, let's talk about this. I grew up in a second, third, and fourth ethical environment my whole life. When I was with my mother, it was second ethic. When I went to church, it was second ethic. When I was around my brother, I was third ethic. And when I was around the parents of my first husband, I was back in second ethic. When I was with my first husband alone, I was third ethic. When I was, yes, I was third ethic with my first husband. When I was around my second husband, I was toggling between second and third ethic. When I went home, I was around my father at fourth ethic, but then I went and visited my mother and I was at second ethic. Now, I was a sixth ethic the whole fucking time that I was toggling between all of these. Now, I have been a BDSM mistress since I was 15 years old. I built my first dungeon when I was 15. And that was a part of me that was over there. And my nudist part of me was also over there. And my exhibitionist side of me was over there. And my husband's, my second husband knew about the BDSM because he's known me since I was 12. But it was not something he ever did. And it was something that just worlds did not collide. And I just gave it up and didn't practice it while I was with him. When we decided to open our marriage and become poly, I found playmates for myself for that. And that was one of the things that imploded our marriage. So there's that over there. And then there's my arts, my operas, my ballets. Now, I have had this part of me alone for so long that opera ballet in my brain is, I'm alone. That's so solo. Last night, I had the wonderful realization. I was talking to a dear friend of mine, and I was going over like, yeah, I don't have, she was like, well, what about your opera ballet? Do you want opera ballet friends? And I'm like, I have been so alone on my opera ballet that I have long since accepted it. And I'm happy not having anybody. Like, it's not even. And my daughter, my 16-year-old, started jumping up and down, like really enthusiastically. And I'm like, yes. And she's like, I love it. And I'm like, so I have an opera buddy now. And it was wonderful because we were looking at something to bond over. We were looking for something to bond over. So this is like fucking perfect. So I now have my opera buddy, but there's that part of me. And then there's I got my partner over there, and my partner fits into the science world, my nerd world. He fits into my nonconformist world. He fits into literally all of my worlds except, well, he doesn't. He fits in with all my worlds. So my current partner now is 100% compatible with literally my entire life. Now, my children are not. This is a problem for me. I love my children. I chose my children. When I accidentally got pregnant with my third child, I did a whole, yay, she's mine. And it was, I chose my children. And I also was Joanna when I had them and significantly mentally ill. So now here I am going, well, I know how to integrate a second and fourth perspective with motherhood. Second, third, and fourth perspective is highly compatible with motherhood. But I'm sixth perspective. Now I'm like 12 plus perspective. And I'm going, how the fuck do I integrate motherhood with this other part of me? Now, because of my slavery and isolation, I have never had anybody to talk parenting with. Now, part of me did this on purpose, and another part of me had this chosen for me. I wasn't allowed friends. And the one I did have was, I fought tooth and nail for her. When I finally went out and chose friends in 2020, I did not want one of those parents that does nothing but talk about their kids. And I did not want one of those parents that had no identity beyond their children, which is very fucking hard to find. So I just made it easy for myself and said, I'm not going to find parents for friends. So I've never had someone to talk friendships or parenting with. And last night I was talking to a friend of mine, and I was struggling with parenting. And when I struggle with parenting, do I struggle with parenting? This is the only thing I've struggled with parenting on. This right here is it. Like so when I got pregnant, I started studying Dr. Phil. I spent 10 years literally watching every Dr. Phil episode, recording them, and then going back and studying his style. That is where I learned psychology. 10 years of studying Dr. Phil. That's where I learned psychology. I knew I was fucked up. And when I got pregnant, my thought was, I need to fix some shit in my brain. So I read Dr. Spock's book. We're not going to talk about that abomination. And I went, okay, so if I want an obedient slave for my empire, I'll follow Dr. Spock's advice. I studied education. My children became the inspiration for a core of everything I did. Like, let's figure shit out, because I knew my parents were so fucking incompetent. Can you relate to this one? When you hit 18, you go, well, I have a long list of all the things not to do when I become a parent. And that's what I had. A long list of all the things not to do is not a list of all the things to do. So I knew nothing on the right proper parenting. So I found Dr. Phil when I was like pregnant, and I studied the fuck out of his style of psychology. 10 years, all I did was study Dr. Phil. And yeah. So my only issue that I've had is how to integrate all these components of the self with motherhood. So my very first number one rule of all when it comes to parenting is be fucking honest. Don't fucking lie about Santa Claus. Don't fucking lie about the fairy, the tooth fairy. Because every time you fucking lie and they figure it out, you erode trust. You sacrifice trust for their childhood magical delusions that don't last. Is it worth it? Don't fucking lie to your kids. Never lie. If you are crying and they ask you if you're crying, you say yes. Don't ever fucking lie to your kids. That's my number one rule with being a parent. Don't ever fucking lie. Not little, not small, you never fucking lie. I told one lie to my children. One lie. And one lie. Berrigan loved to smoke cloves. And I didn't. Berrigan did. And he had 1 clove a month. Literally just 1 clove a month. And he did that for about 6 years. And I did not want my children to smoke. I did not want them around the habit. So Berrigan never smoked around them. And it was something that I kept away from the children. And once or twice, my daughter caught him holding, this is life with multiple personality disorder when you have children. She caught him holding a clove. And now my ex smoked. So when she saw it, she was like, are you smoking? No, I'm holding it for him. And that was like the lie. One day she saw me put it on my lips. And she was like, she laughed, but she laughs when she laughed. She was like, she was concerned. And she asked me a lot about it. There was a lot of repairing I had to do. She asked me to never smoke again. That did not go well with Berrigan, but we promised. And when I'm Scottish, when we promise, we fucking promise. You die before you break your promise. So she asked us to not smoke ever again. And we both said, yeah, we promise. And we have not smoked since. And I will never smoke again. So watching the repairing that I had to do, it was not a lot, because it was literally the only lie I've ever told her. So, and that's just it. It's like, I can't say every parent lies to their children, but most parents do. And most parents lie a lot to their children, to the point where children associate, well, we have something that we say in my family growing up. You know my mom's lying when she opens her mouth. My mom has to do that. I love her. But I don't trust her because she's sick. And it was something that I understood with my children of, you don't lie to my children. You just don't lie to children. And looking back at that one particular event when I did lie and say I was holding it for him. And it wasn't a lie I said one time. It was one I said like maybe 3-4 times. But I did lie. And going back on it, I'm like, yeah, never lie to your children. Never fucking lie to your children. You cannot afford to lose the trust between you and them. You can't. Because the minute you lose trust from your children, game over. Then, and here's the other thing. This is my second really huge fucking piece of advice for parents, is give them psychological safety. I moved mountains for my children to make sure they had psychological safety. Psychological safety follows these rules. Rule number 1, they are given a free space. If they need it, if they say it, they got it. If they ask to talk freely, if they talk to swear, if they want to swear, and they're not allowed to swear. I made it clear to them, like, I don't want you swearing until you're 18, because I wanted them to be consciously aware of swearing. And that's really the only rule I had for my children when they grew up was don't swear until you're 18. And they would have moments where they would explode and they would scream and they would swear, and I never punished them. Never. It was always and I also did not want them swearing against each other. So it was when they broke the rule, it was okay. It was, they are so mad that they broke the rule. And now it is more important that they are talking, more important that they feel safe enough to talk. So there was never, not from me, there was never any repercussion or consequence for them speaking. They could say anything they wanted. They could say anything they wanted about what they thought of me. And there was never any consequence, not once, from all 3 of my children. It was a solid, okay, respect, back off, give you space. If they needed to swear, I gave them the space. Now, my ex parented them completely differently, where he punished them for speaking. And I watched them lie to him to preserve psychological safety. That's what lying is. People lie to preserve their psychological safety because the people they lie to aren't psychologically safe. So I watched my children lie to him, and then he told them that they're not allowed to lie. They didn't have that rule with me. They were allowed to lie to me. And if they did, there was never any repercussion from me on whether or not they lied. Because if they were lying, that was a metric on me on whether or not I was giving them psychological safety. And as a result, I watched them lie to him all the time. And he would get pissed off. And I'm like, they're lying because you don't make them feel psychologically safe. Like, you really want to break down what's really going on when a person lies to you? It's because you have not done your job to make sure they feel safe. You should be asking, why don't they feel safe enough to tell me the truth? That is the question. Why don't you feel safe enough to tell me the truth? And then gently brace for the answer. And if somebody doesn't open up and talk to you, why are you giving them psychological safety? So my children would lie to him and then turn around and tell me the truth. It got to a point where it was laughable. Now, this was at a time at the height of him terrorizing them. And I had no idea the extent of the terror that he was putting them through. And it was, I was doing things in the house to preserve and protect my children from him. This is all at a time when I didn't know I could leave. I couldn't leave until I could leave. So when I finally got out of all of this, I had my children and I went on a journey of, I'm going to find all the pieces of me. And I went on this journey, and it feels like I want you to draw on a piece of paper a circle, and in the dead center of the circle, put an X. You are the X. You, science. You are your own gravitational pull. You are the center of your universe. Gravity is the force that pulls toward the center, and you are that center. You are gravitational force. You have your own gravitational force. And when you are traumatized, when you are a self-divided, you shift and you step off of your X. Now, some people are way off in left field. The more you heal, the more you move toward your center of your universe and you become the X. I am so on my X right now that time revolves around me. True story. And that's the way it's supposed to be. Time is supposed to revolve around you. Time is really fucking awesome in the abstract. So that when you find all of your components, it is the accumulation and the integration of all of your components that puts you at the center of your universe. And the more you don't define yourself, the more you do not know about or save space for your components, the more it puts you way off into left field. When you decide to come out of trauma, you are so far out of left field that you're like a spinning top without balance, without equality. And that's exactly it. A spinning top without equilibrium wobbles until it spins out. And I was watching, somebody had watched a video, one of my older videos today, and it was on hope threads and coming out of trauma. And whenever I get a comment on one of my older videos, I go back and I watch the video. And I started to watch it and I went, oh yes, this is definitely like part of what I wanted to say. And it's when you get out of trauma and there's so much chaos. Your mind is so filled with chaos. Everything is fucking chaotic. And it's chaotic because you are the scattered self all over the place. You are just the scattered self all over the place. You have missing components. You have unidentified components. You don't know who you are. And healing is locating and identifying all of your components and then integrating them back into the self so that you are whole again. And when you do this, you stand at the center of your universe and you become so defined and so stable that you develop your own gravitational pull. So I am so defined now, so solid in my central core that I now can feel the last few components that I need to collect. It's cooking right now. Cooking and food is one of my last components. My friendships, I'm starting to pull that apart. Friendships is last. So it goes in the order of the I of I, the you of I, the they of I, the all of I. The all of I is the process of integration and balance. So there is the self, which is the I of I. And then there is the you of I, which is your romantic partner, your intimate partner. And then there is your they of I, which is your community. And integrating all of your Georges into one whole is exactly what we're doing. Now, George Costanza is a great example of this because that's not what he did. That's not what a lot of us do. We are divided against ourselves. We do have a piece of ourself over there and a piece of ourself over there. And we are living a life balancing where we want to make sure this part doesn't come in contact with that part because, oh my God, worlds collide. That is a symptom of not being integrated. It is not balanced living. What you end up doing is juggling, making sure that everything gets a little bit of you at a time because you need to make sure that the pieces don't touch, because when worlds collide, that means that you're wearing masks. And the only time you're really your true self is most likely when you're alone. So when you are building the self, it's literally stepping into your own power, stepping into that center point, defining all of your components, and then accepting and loving and developing each and every one. It's the refinement of all of your components, and then the integration. And integrating the self into a greater whole is one of the most powerful journeys you'll go on. It's extraordinary. Confidence exists when you've integrated the whole. I am currently working on emotional flow charts, literally where you can go in and you can say, I feel X, and then I show you the flow chart as to what's going on. Fear is one of my favorites. Fear comes from a lack of information, a lack of not knowing, specifically a lack of choosing. Everything comes down to choosing. And if you are one of those persons who run through what if statements over and over again, you are lacking an if then clause in your logical comprehension. So, using what if statements as clues, what if statements come usually with a lot of feelings of paranoia and fear. And the paranoia and the fear overwhelm. Emotional overwhelm is something I really need to talk about. Emotional overwhelm is what you feel when you have a problem, but the emotion is so overwhelming, it pulls you away from the solution. Emotional overwhelm is at the crux of all of this. It's why people don't problem solve. It's why people aren't resolving their issues. It's why people immediately go into, oh my God, I got this emotion that has to be handled first. And handling these emotions, there's a whole lot of advice out there on how to do it. Don't do it, suppress this. Emotions have a purpose. And the other problem with all of this is there are so many, and it is so loud, and it is so chaotic. It's like someone's handed me a ball of thread and said, here you go, sort this. And you're looking at it going, oh, how the fuck am I supposed to sort it? It's so loud and chaotic. And I was thinking about this yesterday, and I'm sitting here writing out all my emotional flow charts, and I'm going, Anna, 8 years ago when you left your chaotic hellhole, were you, well, I didn't leave it then, but were you in a position to sort out all of the chaos? No. How would I communicate to those people how to sort the emotional threads? Intuition says one strand at a time. One strand at a time. Fear is probably the most prominent. So we're going to talk about that. Fear. Fear requires choice. And we're going to go over choice because choice is the top of the flow chart. This is literally an emotional flow chart that I'm building. It's really fucking cool. I'm putting it at the end of my book, Breaking Delusion, so that at the end of the book, it will have all the tools, the diagrams, the formulas, the exercises, so you can just go through. And the flow chart is going to be at the back of the book. So one strand at a time. When you have fear, you lack choice. Not that you lack choice, but you're not doing it. You have two choices. You can choose to choose, or you can choose not to choose. Let me go ahead and build this now because this is going in the book and I'm just going to go ahead and write it while I talk to you. And then when we're done, I can just plug it right into the book. Yes, the emotional flow chart. Emotional flow chart. Emotional flow chart. I don't know if I want to call it the emotional flow chart or the flow chart of emotions. I'll figure that out later. But for now, so you have fear. And I believe we also have anxiety. Actually, it begins with want. Da, 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 da. Want is the first emotion. And then from want, you have choice. From choice, you have choose to choose, or you can choose to not choose. And that's it. A lot of people choose to not choose, which is the problem. If you choose to not choose, you're going to get anger, fear, and self-doubt. These are some of the very first emotions that come from not choosing. you are going to see a lot of I can't. I can't actually means I don't know how. Now, when you choose, you can choose to learn, resolve. That's it. That's it. You can learn to learn or you can learn to resolve. And then people say, I can't. So then you need to learn. If you can't, that is the clue that you need to learn. A lot of people don't do this. So when you choose to choose, and then you have, yeah, I don't know how. I don't know how is back to, well, you need to learn. I can't. You need to learn how to learn. I will be covering that in the book. That is covered in the book, is learning how to learn. A lot of people do not know how to learn, which is part of the problem. And then there is the, well, what if, ... I love what ifs. What ifs mean you are lacking an if-then clause. And you need to answer yourself's question. Now, your fear, let's call it your fear's question. If your fear is asking, well, what if? It's because you need the answer. I love if-then clauses. I also put this in the book as well, where I sit down and I show people, this is an if-then clause, this is logic, this is how it works. And an if-then clause is if X happens, then this will happen. And I put an if-then clause in my mind the other day. Basically, an if-then clause is a solution. If I don't know, then I will learn. If I am afraid, then I will find the solution. These are my if-then clauses. If I am afraid, if I don't know how, if I don't know how to find the answer, that's the other one. If I don't know how to find the answer, then and then if I need an open door, then I open the door. Then So these are like 4 or 5 if-then clauses I have in my brain. These are really, really nice ones to have. So that now I had 2 problems. One of them is cooking. A whole lot of stuff there that I'm not unpacking right now. And the other one is friendships. I have my past romantic relationships. I have my past slavery. And then over there, I've got my past friendships. My friendships were actually more traumatic than my slaves, my owners, because I knew they were owners. Well, I kind of knew. I knew that they were not to be trusted. I knew they were toxic, and I knew they weren't going to last forever. So I knew to not open myself up to them. I knew they weren't to be trusted and they were pieces of shit people. And I thought they were the best I could do. Meanwhile, my friends, I thought they were forever. Every one of them. I thought my friends were forever. So I gave all of my trust to my friends. As a result, my friends hurt me far more than any of the rapes and the abusers. So it was easier for me to get around to feeling love again. It was easier for me to open my heart to a relationship again, hence my partner. It's not been easy for me to open my heart to friendship. That's a whole nother level of, yeah. I opened that door yesterday, 2 days ago. I finally felt stable enough. And it was funny because it was like I was writing a letter and or a text, and it was like 3 or 4 days ago. And I wrote the words, I feel pre-ready to being pre-ready to being ready enough to find friends. And I'm like, I can feel it. I am at the pre-stage of feeling ready. Like I can feel it. And then the next day I was like, okay, all right. And then yesterday was just, let's problem solve. And instead of having fear, and this is it, when you have fear, you get to problem solve. Fear or problem solve. And because you can choose, not choosing takes you to fear. Choosing takes you to problem solving. So a lot of people don't believe they can problem solve. I don't have the resources. I don't have the knowledge. Therefore, I can't problem solve. Therefore, I'm not going to choose. You can. We're going to walk through how. When you realize that you can choose between fear or solution, it's a game changer. And suddenly, when you feel fear, I did this with overwhelm. And I'm doing it with fear. So I know it's coming. And I'm going, oh, yes, I'm very excited about this. With overwhelm, it started off with, I felt overwhelmed. I defined overwhelm. Overwhelm is a lack of organization and an inability to prioritize, or not a lack of prioritizing the problems in front of you. So you use process of elimination with compartmentalization and priority to determine and break down what you're actually dealing with from a conglomerate into a little compartments until you then choose from a smaller group. And you only deal with one group at a time. That's how you deal with overwhelm. I am so efficient now at practicing this that I never feel overwhelmed. I never feel overwhelmed. Overwhelmed, like every emotion is on a scale of 1 to 10. And if you are not managing it, you're going to feel the level 10 emotion. So my overwhelm is now down to a 1, which feels nothing like overwhelm. It feels nothing at all like overwhelm. It's a feeling of a little push. And now I know it. And I'm like, I need to compartmentalize. So I immediately problem solve at level 1. If you have a level 10 emotion, you're not problem solving. So you need to problem solve and decrease the emotion. And then you get so good at problem solving over here at level 1, 2, 3, that it never grows bigger. So I'm now doing this with fear. So when I feel fear, I can take the emotion now and go, okay, that's the clue that I need to choose. I need to make a choice. I need to problem solve. So I wrote down what I did, and this is literally the flow chart. This is what I did. This is the road, people. Go get a pen, go get a paper, pause my video. This is the pathway. Here's how this works. Take notes. So the path goes like this. You feel the fear, and that is a clue as to what action you need to take. The action you need to take is this. You need to write down a list. So list your fears. And it's going to look like, I am afraid that X will happen. Now, there is a lot of information in that sentence, a lot. So I'm going to break it down to you to show you what's in that sentence. What is in that, excuse me, what is in that sentence is a problem, basically an if-then clause without a then. If X does happen, then fill in the blank. And this is where a lot of people will start to, well, this could happen, this, and they'll start listing it off. And there's a couple different ways you can do this. You can do problem solving, you can do preventative measure, you can do, there's so many different things. Preventative measure, there is coming up with your own solution, there's what result do you want to happen? So that's really it. What do you want to happen? So what do you want to happen? Now, this is where a lot of people have an idea of what they do wish would happen, but they don't think they can. And instead of choosing because they didn't choose, they said, well, I can't. So now we're back to the I can't again. This is where it comes from. So instead of choosing, they just, I can't, and they surrender. So now write a list of what you do want. If X happens, what do you actually want? Well, I want ABC. All right. Now, why? What are the obstacles? List your obstacles. When you list your obstacles, you're actually writing yourself a to-do list for learning. Your obstacles are all the things that you have to learn. It comes down to, I don't have the resources. I don't have the time. I don't have the skills. It usually comes down to, I don't have the money. I'm too busy, or I don't know how. That's really what we're saying. Resources, busy, how. When it comes to resources and money, we're going to shelve that one. Busy, priority. That's what you're really dealing with. You don't know how to integrate this new priority into your life. And or you do not have the priority on this problem. Most likely because you've given up and the how and the money is so overwhelming that you just don't prioritize it. That's what happens with a lot of that. That's why we don't give things our time, is because we don't have the money, we don't have the skills, so we just quit it. And that's where we claim we're too busy. I love you, monkey man. Suddenly a little bit more of you makes a lot of sense. Skills, how? So you've got skills and you've got how. A lot of people don't know how, which means you lack knowledge and learning, which is why you have the fear. So we're going to go through this once more. I'm going to walk through the map. So you have the fear, which is the clue for the action that you should take or you will take. And then it's listing your fears. I'm afraid what will happen. Well, if X does happen, then blank. What do you want to happen? You list the obstacles, why you're not doing it. If you want it to happen, then why aren't you doing it? List your obstacles. Well, I can't because I don't have the resources, I'm too busy, or I don't know how. So how goes back to you need to learn. So now we're at the choose to learn. You can choose to learn. Now, this is where a lot of people say, I don't know how to learn. And they don't, because we aren't taught how to learn. I do. I know it's my mastery. It's one of the things I cover in my book. And with everything else here is this is how you learn. So I don't know how to learn. When it comes to finding solutions, finding resolutions, the next thing we look at is the resources and the money. And then from there, it's then prioritizing it. So we're going to now break down those pieces. So Brandy is one of my dearest friends. I'm calling her a friend. She's going to be so proud of me. And the Healing Garden is literally a conglomerate of these three things. I provide knowledge. She provides the resources. You prioritize it. So when you come into the Healing Garden, we're doing all this for you. I sit down and I give you the knowledge and the information. Any problem, anything in life, what you want, I give you the knowledge. Here you go. She steps in and gives you the resources. She knows how to find resources for you and she pulls it together. You just need to prioritize it. So this is what we do. This is like one of the things in the background that we're working on, that we're building. This is the Healing Garden, is literally these three components coming together. You bring the priority, but she and I take care of the rest. So that you tell us what you want and she grabs the resources, I give you the knowledge, and we integrate it. Done. It's literally removing all of your obstacles from life. This is like going to be on the Healing Garden side of everything. So, yeah, it's really fucking cool. Like looking at this, I'm going, oh, look at that, a triangle. You've got your time, your priority, your knowledge, and your resources, your information. So, whenever you feel afraid, now, if you know how to learn, that's a process. Learning is just the integration of indulge to avoid to integrate, and it's allowing yourself to go through that. When you, let's say, for instance, I mean, in my case, I'll use myself as an example. I want friends. So now I'm going, yeah, I don't know how to make friends. So Miss Resource Center herself, we sat down yesterday and she's like, well, here are the resources. Let's do an inventory. And this is big. When it comes to resources, you need to do an inventory. The problem is a lot of people are so close-minded because the poorly regulated self will go into an emergency mode and close down into closed-minded thinking in a last act to preserve the self. Hence, an inability to problem solve, see alternatives, find solutions, and become prejudiced. It is a self-preservation type forced-induced comfort zone. So a lot of people are too closed-minded to see their own resources. So she and I sat down and we did an inventory. What do we have at our disposal? I want you to think kind of like MacGyver. MacGyver would be a great example of this. But imagine you're locked in a room or you're on an island cast away. The very first thing you do is take an inventory. What do you have to work with? You've got your skills to work with. You've got resources to work with. So I went, well, I want friends. Well, what do we have? Well, I do have all these Facebook followers. I don't go on Facebook, not in 3 months, and I'm so much happier for it. I do have all of these. I do have a meetup group, and it's my New York City Nerd Hunters. That's what it's called, New York City Nerd Hunters. And we are literally like, so I've got like 30 plus people over there. And I've got these people. And she's like, okay, this is what we're going to do. Basically, we need to ignite the spark of, and this is my problem, is you've got your risk and you've got motivation, you've got momentum, risk, and then you've got your ROI. My risk is greater than my ROI. So if I overcome the risk to invest my time into these people, they're strangers. And that is enough to kill any momentum I have because I don't want to overcome risk for strangers. And this puts me in a cycle over and over again. She goes, well, what if I'm there? And I'm like, well, then I'd be spending time with you and that'd be fucking fun. And she goes, let's do that. So we are now utilizing our connection so that she and I are going to have fun. And so and this is why we do things without it being alone, is because once you have that one seed, then it's like, okay. Now in 2020, I didn't have this problem and I had this problem, but my mindset was different. And this is what I mean by your mindset is what dictates all of this, is I was fresh out of a marriage thing and I went, I'm going to New York and I'm having fun. And I was happy to be alone. So I went off and did a whole lot of everything. Manhattan was my playground, literally. And I went in and did whatever the fuck I wanted with whomever the fuck I wanted. I did some really weird shit all over Manhattan. It was awesome. And I literally backpacked through Manhattan for a year. Yeah, it was so fucking awesome. I call it Sunshine Imagination Adventures. And it was literally like one of the best times of my life. And when I was sunshine imagining adventures, that's when I found my partner. And now I'm going, okay, all right. So I went full cycle. I'm going, I need to get back into sunshine imagination adventures. But I feel the fear of, I don't want to get hurt again. What would make you get hurt again? Loving people. And I'm back to my list again, the fear, the clue, the action. Loving people is what I'm afraid will happen. You have your circle of trust now. I do. You have your AIDNS. I do. You have discernment. I do. So, and then I pull out my, well, X could happen. And if it does, it would be a learning opportunity. And then I would know to tweak my AIDNS, or I would know, Brandy, epiphany. Exposure therapy to the AIDNS to confirm that the AIDNS is working on full operation. in order to confirm that it can withstand this kind of a test. The risk just dropped and the ROI just skyrocketed. I love formulas. Suddenly, this is just an experiment to see if the AI DNS can withstand this. Oh, this is good. So yeah, it's if X happens, then I'm going to learn. And what if this happens? Then I will find a solution. And if you don't know, then I will learn. And if you are found in a bad situation, I can't, because I've got my circle of trust, my discernment, and my AI DNS. Once I went through all these if-then clauses that I put into my brain, the what-ifs stopped. Not only did they stop, but this is what happened. There was a lot of, my fear system literally tried to find a problem. And it was so funny. I've got my AI DNS, I've got my discernment, I've got my circle of trusts, and I've got my what-if statements. And I'm just sitting here. The logical side of me is sitting here going, we're going to go find friends now. And my fear system is, and there's no fear. The fear's been turned way down, but it's still trying to think. And it's going, well, what about, and I can feel my fear system analyzing all probabilities. It's like I got the probability drive in my brain, the improbability drive. And it's sitting there just going through all possible scenarios. And every scenario it comes up with, the AI DNS, my discernment, my circle of trust, and my if-then statements cut it off. And I'm just sitting here logically going, did I miss anything? And my fear system is going, oh, I got nothing. And I'm going, so I'm sitting back. And I'm lounging now. And I have no fear. And I'm just sitting here feeling. And I'm going, my fear system is literally just sat down, shut it up, and went, I got nothing. Choice does this. Choice absolutely does this to you. It's extraordinary. It's fucking powerful. I can feel, and so this morning I woke up and I was like, I have a problem with cooking. I'm a vegetarian. And when I finally accepted this about me, remembered this about me in 2020, 2022, I changed my eating habits. Now, so cooking in New York City is a thing. It's not a thing. We have restaurants, so you eat out. Eating out in New York City, there's a reason why a lot of us are here. This is why we are here. This makes the rent worth it. The food makes the rent worth it. Do you hear what I'm saying? $8,000 a month for a 4 cubic square footage? It's worth it. Go to Hell's Kitchen and eat. So yeah, the people who are in Manhattan are here because we're all foodies. That's like the one thing all of Manhattan has in common. We're all foodies. These are my people. Which is why if you don't make good food, you get voted off the island. Manhattan survivor. So that's why people live in Manhattan. That's why when people are like, I don't understand. Well, you're not a foodie. You weren't going to get it. I once drove, this is back before I was a vegetarian. I was a vegetarian, but didn't know it. I once drove 3 hours for a hot dog in Manhattan. 3 hours for a hot dog. Yep, that's. I did that. Halal guys, like, don't drop it. You just, okay, I'm going. You just don't think about it. The food is that fucking good here. So I'm at a point where I'm going, I want to cook, but I have no idea now how to cook. I've been surviving off of food in Manhattan, vegetarian and vegan for the last year. So now I'm at a point where I'm like, okay, I have to cook. And all I've been cooking is pasta and soup, which isn't cooking. Okay, cooking pasta, yes, but I've been heating up soup. And I'm going, okay, I am so sick of pasta and soup. And I'm like, I'm terrified of it. And I come from country land. I come from farmland. So fresh produce takes on a whole other meaning to me. And New York City is not renowned for its fresh produce. It's one of the things where I'm like, oh, so here's how it works. You've seen Ratatouille. All the fresh produce goes to the restaurants. The grocery stores, the grocers get second choice, sometimes fourth choice, sometimes 88th place. So you want fresh produce, you have to go to the restaurants. They get first pick. And the grocers are what's left over. So now I go to the grocery store and I'm like, ew. Now in country land, the fresh produce, well, first you can go right to the farm and buy straight from the farm. The second thing you can do is go to the grocery store. And there are two types of grocery stores to choose from. There's the fresh from the local farms, or there's imports. You had this option. It's still one of the dumbest fucking things. I'm like, yep, Second Perspectives run this place. Is when you can choose romaine lettuce. And you can choose the romaine lettuce that's been grown locally, or you can purchase the romaine lettuce that was literally farmed in Nevada's deserts by the water reserve off of Lake Mead. Yeah, you have that choice. And I'm sitting here going, really? Really? You're going to sell me in New York State lettuce that is grown off of the water of Lake Mead, you fucking little bastards. I'm going to calm down. That's like a dangerous topic for me because I'm going to take that over to my, this is not a podcast. This is not a conspiracy podcast. I'm really fucking pissed about the water problem in Nevada. So that's some of the options you have upstate is Lake Mead grown lettuce or locally grown lettuce. So I'm very conscious to make sure that I always purchase locally grown. My eye twitches. So yeah, I'm gonna step away from that before I go. So it's a problem I have here is the cooking. So we did a whole lot of problem solving and let's figure this out. And I haven't looked at her answers yet, but I had like, these are my 3 problems. Is the recipes, well, we've got Ellen Brown for that, so we're good. But then I'm going, my facilities, my kitchen facilities. I can problem solve around that. But my third problem is the produce here in the area. And I know she's probably already Googling fresh produce for the area because I know her. She's probably like already, like while she's watching this video, I can see her now like Googling this shit, going, where can we get fresh produce delivered from a local farm near New York City? Because she's like that. I love her to pieces. So, like I said, she's my resource manager. She's the one who finds all the shit for resources. It's extraordinary. So that being said, once you understand the components of problem solving is just identifying your skills, identifying your resources, and then prioritizing it. And that's it. When you want to problem solve, those are your 3 components of problem solving. Resources, skills, and making it a priority. The resources, count your inventory. Literally, take inventory. And the problem is, and this is it, it's your problem solving versus your fear. This is really it. Your fear has a nasty habit of blinding you to your resources and of blocking your ability to look for answers. Why? Why does it do this? I have a vendetta I need to address with fear. Give me a minute. Why the fuck do you do this, Jerry? Why? Self-preservation, he says. Okay, self-preservation. You realize this is the dumbest fucking thing that evolution has put together. Self-preservation. Because there's danger if you do it. That is the Occam's razor to this. Yes, it's dangerous if you solve. Why is it danger to resolve this? Why is it dangerous to resolve the problem? You have resources because you don't think you can do it. Fail. There it is. Fear of failure. Pain. Lack of proof of concept. Okay. So your belief that you can't succeed causes you to blind us to our inventory, drop the priority on it. I hate it when he goes self-detonate. Self-detonation is the dumbest solution to self-preservation. Yeah, it's something inside of our system where we go into self-detonate, self-destruct to self-preserve. Yep, dumbest fucking thing we have in our system. Self-destruct to self-preserve. Self-destruct to self-preserve. Jerry's really fucking stupid, Jerry. All right, so resources, priority, and then skills. So, because the risk is too high, he says. Yep, the risk is greater than the ROI. So, what if we decrease the risk and increase the ROI? Will you allow us to resolve the situation then, Jerry? When you start opening doors with this, they're all going to open. When you start opening doors and solving problems like this, they're all going to open. You're going to pick at it a little bit, and then it's just going to be a flood. I use the Silva Mind method. It's a book. You can get it. I advise it. To then manifest. It is called lucid dreaming manifestation or lucid dreaming. Now, he does not call it manifestation. In fact, the entire book, he never uses the word manifest once. Oh, does he? I think there's one chapter on it, but no, he doesn't. He doesn't. He talks about being able to control the future. Now, I said it last night, this morning, that I'm going to read it to you again. Your present is the manifested future that you invented in conception when you chose your current reality. Your present is the manifested future. This is something that I really like. Future happens first. Materialization in the present happens second. The past happens last. Welcome to time in the abstract. The future is when you think it, and then it materializes and becomes. And then the past catalogs it as a record of things that were. Once more, conceptualize, materialize, record. Always. So when you think of something, you slide it to the right and you give it to the future. This is my right. You slide it to the right and you give it to the future. It's in the future coming toward you now. The better you get this, the faster you manifest. And then it happens in the present because you've already thought of it. You've already made all the choices to make sure it happens. And then it drops. You create, you write, you predict, you manage your own future based off of the choices that you're making now. This is why past, present, future are all happening at the same time. You think it, conceptualize it, and then it happens. So, one of the if-then statements that I constantly manifest, I'm going to go through a couple of them because these are like core manifestations. I open all doors. I have no obstacles. I overcome my obstacles with ease. Use you are statements. So I say, you open all doors. You have no obstacles. You overcome your obstacles with great ease. And I use the manifestation, show me the next step. When I say show me the next step, I see what it is I have to do next to get whatever it is I need. And then between opening the doors and showing the next step, oh, you're set. So I use manifestation to heal. I use manifestation to get out of my own fucking way. I don't use manifestation to get things. I use manifestations to get the knowledge to get things. I use manifestation to open opportunity to get the things. So, and this is the difference between a lot of people use manifestation to feed themselves for a day. I don't do that. I manifest knowledge, because when you manifest knowledge, you always know how. I manifest knowledge. I manifest how. I manifest the knowledge. I do the show me how. So it wasn't I want world peace. It was show me the next step to get to world peace. Show me the information I need to get me to world peace. I know how to get to world peace. And that is how I was able to then use my intuition to become more sensitive to all the pieces with math, logic, physics to align the AIDNS, to compose the AIDNS, to then say, okay, here's the AIDNS. And then I continued to manifest, I want to create this thing that is literally a cure-all for all mental illness by defining the self. Now, I had no idea it was going to define the self. I just wanted world peace. And so I used this formula to invent it. I did not sit there and say, I want world peace. I wanted the solution. I wanted the know-how. I didn't say I want to know how. I said, show me the next step and give me the knowledge. Because when you have the knowledge, you can do it. You can just put it together. I don't need somebody sitting here telling me what to do with my knowledge. I know what to do with knowledge. So when you start thinking in terms of this, it's a different type of manifestation. Now, if I'm sitting here going, I want a car, like manifesting objects is like, and this is one of my problems is I don't manifest money. I really struggle manifesting money because I'm like, that's not a solution. That's like, it makes no logical sense to me to manifest money. I really don't understand it. I have information knowledge. I have wishes and dreams that I want. For instance, it is my wish and my dream to have my ideal life. So I focus on what I need to do to get the ideal life. Now, a consequence to that is the money. So the money's coming, but it's not at all what I'm focusing on. It's not here's another big one. I do not manifest people because that's controlling. And that's violating their consent. And ethically, I can't do that. And I don't want to do that. So I just manifest their healing. I just wish them healed. That's all I do. I wish the world healed. That's the kind of shit I manifest. I wish everyone would heal. I wish everyone would heal. I would just heal them. When I manifest, I just manifest healing. The more I manifest healing, the more idea I get on how to heal people, how to invent and create and build and tweak the AIDNS. And I keep manifesting, I just wish people would heal. And then the how is coming to me in the form of the AIDNS. So that now I can take that, put it out there, and now I can sell it to people and say, here's how to do the AIDNS. Here's a $20, $30 book. Go heal yourself. See how all this works. And then we've got this gorgeous thing that Brandy and I are building with the resources, the knowledge, and then you bring the priority, and we put it together for you, and there you go. So, yeah, that's it. That's it. And that's it really right there. That's the most beautiful, like, this is the overall scoop of it. It's absolutely breathtaking how it all fits together. And when you realize that you are just defining the self and you are just putting things toward the self in that single point, that's it. That's what you're doing. Brandy, we need to have a meeting after this because I've got a lot of million ideas just coming to me and I'm going, holy shit. I am like, vision is coming to me. So When you start building all of these pieces, especially when you get the right emotion, when you identify the right emotions, when you're able to pick them apart and you follow the flow charts of this is the emotion I'm feeling, this is how to use it. And that's just it, is use your emotions to your advantage. And you can choose. And it's really about what are you going to do about your emotions? And people have emotions and then they don't know what to do with them. And this is the problem. This is 100% the problem, is there is the I don't know how, what to do with my emotions. And when you start to understand what your emotions are for, how to use them to your advantage, how to use them properly, it's a game changer. And the more you use your emotions, the more you can use that emotional management to tone them down so you can get over the noise. So now you can start finding all the components of the self. So you've got the emotional noise, which requires first the management. And then you've got basically your learning system. Your learning system is part of your problem. It is your problem. Is your learning system pauses, it freezes when you have trauma. When you have, and that increases the amount of your emotional noise. So you have to literally revive your learning system. You have to revive it, restore it, and turn it back on. When you do that, what you are doing is you are identifying all of your self components, and then you are integrating them. And the more you define your self components, the more you integrate them, the more you move into, the more you become your center gravity. And that's what you're doing, is you are moving into the center of your universe. And it requires the unscattering of all of your components integrated into the whole, because you are a self-divided, because a George divided against itself cannot stand. So it's shifting you from a self-divided into an integrated whole of the self. That is the healing journey. That's really what you're doing. And it requires a couple stages of defining all of your components. It is removing the components that are not you. And the components make up your identity. So if you are suffering from identity displacement, many people suffer from identity displacement. What you are really suffering from, if you were to break down identity displacement, is you have given up your components and you've adopted the components of other people. One of my sisters is really, really mentally unstable. She has such a severe case of identity displacement. She is a level 3 narcissist. And her identity displacement is so severe that when she watches a fictional show, she becomes the fictional show. You might know people like this. You might be someone like this, where when you watch a television show and you attach to one of the fictional characters, you take on the characteristic traits of that fictional character. That is identity displacement at one of its most severe. When you don't have somebody in your life, you cling to a fictional character from a television show. I watched her literally pass through 4 different identities as she watched and changed shows. And every show became an obsession. That is because her identity was defined by the fictional character she became, because she suffered so severely from identity displacement. That is what it is. My mother's really good at creating people with identity displacement problems. And it's amazing because I've literally watched her from my youngest brother over to my sister and now my sister's daughter, all 3 of them. And I've watched her do the process of, this is how I know shit, of putting her children through the process of identity displacement, through her own over nurturing, enabling helicopter mumming, to the point where she becomes their servant, their identity, which in turn teaches them that their purpose is to serve as her identity. So that as they move further and further away from the mother, my mother has stolen their identity. That's how it's done. It's your mother's fault. It's really fucking horrible, but it's how we train our mothers in our country. It's how our culture conditions our mothers. Motherhood has been so contaminated and corrupted with this process that our women are groomed for it. And the men enforce it through love and expectation of, if you don't love like this, you're not wanted. So now the woman is in our society where they think, oh, I have to give all of myself to my child, which takes the child's identity from themselves, because the child grows up thinking, oh, my only purpose is to have my mother love me. Oh, well, at least my mother loves me. And then we glorify it. Oh, you're a good mother. Oh, you don't identity displace a codependent relationship with your child like a toxic parasite. Ugh, you're a bad mother. Yeah. It's really fucking bad in this country. In all countries. It's really fucking bad. Which is why empty nesters kill themselves many, many times. It is the leading group of suicide is empty nesters, because our society teaches women that they are nobody until they breed. I was one of them. So that's where narcissism comes from, by the way, mothers. It's just this horrible contamination of the mothers. And I'm working on a program to very gently wing mothers off of it. And it's like, yeah, I'm trying to figure out what I need to do, because it's the second perspective mother. And if they're not cleaning to their children, they're cleaning to their religion. And they've got this real toxic codependent religion, God and child. And it's like, yeah. And I'm trying to figure out the best way to handle that. I cut myself. I don't even know how I did it. I was doing dishes the other day, and I just pulled my hand out, and that was there. And I'm going, I have no idea how. And it's really bothering me right now. So it's lowering the emotional noise, and then the steps of integrating the self and healing is lowering and managing that emotional noise through the emotional fear charts, or the emotional flow charts, and then restoring and reviving your learning system. So while you are also defining the components, removing the components that are not you, removing foreign components, and defining your components, so you're separating them. You're using compartmentalization to separate your components from the components that aren't you. And then it's integrating and recovering your lost components. And then it's going to be integrating all of the components. And when we get to the integration stage, we're so foreign to the concept of integrating all the parts of the self that we don't do it. It's so foreign. Hence this episode of Seinfeld with the divided George and worlds colliding, is we don't do it in our society. And as a result, a lot of us don't know how. Well, I've got this mask over here. I've got this mask. I remember being a child counting all of my masks. I remember analyzing all of my masks. Well, I've got this mask for these friends. I've got this mask for this situation. I've got these masks over here for this situation. I've got these masks over here for this situation. And I remember counting all of my masks. And when you get alone, you don't know which mask you wear, because you don't know who you are anymore. This is why. Your masks are you literally adopting the components of somebody else's identity, because you have identity displacement. It's you shifting perspective, not shifting perspective. It's you using an invasive perspective to adopt the appropriate behavior to blend in so you can survive. Because at the end of the day, you either have a conditional belonging, conditional love, and conditional happiness. And as a result, you actually don't have belonging, you don't have love, and you don't have happiness. So you are using all of these ridiculous, horrific, self-destructive techniques to preserve false belonging, false love, and false happiness. Really process what I just said. That a lot of people are using all of their energy and skills desperately to preserve false belonging, false love, and false happiness, while they are absolutely ripping apart the self. And you're not doing it for love or belonging or happiness. You're doing it for false belonging, false love, and false happiness. If you have to destroy the self for these things, it's not the real thing. So what people are doing is actually self-destructing for a fake. That's what you're doing. Self-destruction for a false belonging, false love, false happiness. It's really fucking, that's the summation. And healing happens when you realize this is what you're doing. So there's a lot of people who resist healing. Well, I don't want to lose belonging, love, and happiness. What makes you think you have it to begin with? You don't have it. If you did, then you would not have to self-destruct. Real love, real belonging, and real happiness is when you self-nurture and are the center of your own universe. When you do have the integrated, defined components of the self, that is when you get real belonging, real love, and real happiness. But instead, we are all doing the self-destruct mode for false belonging, false love, and false happiness. And then we protect our false love, false belonging, false happiness with this do or die suicidal action of, I can't live without this. Do you understand the toxicity of what you've created, of what they have groomed into you, of what you are now nurturing? Parasitic. This is why I say it's a parasite clinging to a host, is because we literally condition ourselves to self-destruct, all for this fake love, fake belonging, fake happiness. And then we become so protective over the preservation of the false. This is the delusion. And every single one of us is living it. So that when you finally decide to heal, you're trying to figure out, who am I in a sewage slop of chaos? Well, let's start with the fact that first, you need to stop self-destructing, and you need to throw away the things you love the most, because what you love the most are contingent upon your self-destruction. Your things that you love the most depend on your death. Think about this. The things you love the most require your death. And you want to know why you're not happy. So now we're back to the how. Do I have the resources? Do I have the knowledge? Yes, you do. You can. You just need a plan. You need to understand. You need the skills. You need the management. That's what I do here. Thank you so much for your audience. And may the kindest of words always find you.